you were right. Every deal is in your database. So it's like you got to look beyond your screen. You got to look long term. Every
Yeah.
single one that you pull in and fund, that's your business 6 months from now, 12 months from now. And I think that's a piece of it too, where they're like, oh, I'm only going to make $2,000 on this. So Daniel, I guess part of the reason I like your content and everything is I think you're doing some of the similar things that we're doing. I do see you guys are producing big numbers. And I wanted to ask, is it predominantly your online leads? I know you've mentioned free rate update. I've kind of pulled away from them a little bit. And if you're using free rate update, are you doing the live transfer or are you getting the lead and then you call in?
Yeah, so good question. I don't do the live calls. I thought about doing that, and but it more or less what I do is I got a pretty big footprint, so I got 18 active licenses, and I'll activate all of them, and it allows me to keep my bid fairly low, so I think I'm set at like 26, and but then you get the random states, right? Like Texas, you get a ton of Texas, and Texas is a fucking beast right now because of the market, and it's very difficult to do. So I like that you could toggle that off, and you can kind of control. You could pause certain states, and you could filter a little bit better than like Lending Tree, right? But even though Lending Tree only sells it to like 3 competitors, still you're going to get a ton of competitors just off that credit pool. You know what I mean? But yeah, to answer your question, it is predominantly internet leads. Fruze is definitely probably our main go-to when it comes to leads. And with respect to like getting them on the phone, everyone kind of goes about it different. I find that with internet, you have to approach it a little bit different so you stand out, right? So I don't know if like you have a quote template where you give them kind of like 1, 2, 3 different options or what have you, but I use that, and then I'll always quote cash out refinance. The second one is a HELOC, and then a HELOAN, right? And then what I do, obviously, you go very aggressive. It's like a car commercial. You're always going to show the best possible rate, right? Probably even a little less than that. But I methodically immediately send that, because I changed the dynamic of my approach with respect to the fact that I'm calling to confirm that they got it, and also to check the numbers to make sure that they're correct. Because typically, I'll say sometimes depending on the site, they might have auto-populated some figures, and I'm not, I don't need to bog you down for an hour of your time, ask you personal questions. I'm a broker. I'll let my numbers speak for themselves. You'll see it, right? To that effect. So it changes the approach as if like, it's already happened, right? And I'm different. So I'm not calling them and saying, hey, this is Daniel Niekart with West Capital Lending. I saw that you did an online inquiry. What's your goal? I never go about it that way, because that I sound like everyone else, right? So first and foremost, oftentimes you're leaving voice messages, right? Because they're getting blown up. And so my CRM, I use Shape. So I could do like pre-recorded voicemails plus set up text. And so my voicemail sounds very much like, hey, Ram, it's Daniel. Sorry I missed your call. Hey, I sent that information to you. Confirm that you got it. I know you're getting a lot of messages right now. The subject says your requested equity quotes, because I know a lot of them are applying for home equity lines, right? So I want them to understand that I could provide that. But more importantly, I want them to reply based on make sure the numbers are correct. And sometimes I'll even like beef it up, dude. Like I'll change the numbers to the point where it's like, no, I don't need that much on purpose, because I'm just trying to get engagement, right? So if they text back and they say, yeah, I didn't need 100,000, I'm only looking for 50,000, and then I would reply back and say, that's perfect. There's this campaign. I'm calling you about this right now. And then I'll call them, because they're already engaging on the text. Right. So now I got them, and I'm saying, okay, cool. So you only need 50,000. Are you sure you don't need more than that? Yeah, I'm sure. Okay, perfect. There's a campaign that's going on specific to your area. The maximum I can go is 50,000 on the equity line, right? I'm going under the premise of getting them pre-qualified and selling them on the equity line. Oftentimes, a lot of brokers would be like, well, what's your FICO, right? You're not going to qualify. Hell no. I'm saying, as long as you got a 500 FICO, I can help you. right? Because that's true, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and then so let everyone else, let all of our competitors say that they don't qualify, because what happens is our competitors they're not privy enough, so they get a request for a HELOC, then they start pre-qualifying off a HELOC. I pre-qualify just off general, like what do you need the cash for? Okay, so this campaign's very specific. It focuses on what's called residual income. Do you know what that is? No, I don't know what that is. Well, essentially it's basically the net of what your net income is after all your expenses are paid. How much is that? And that allows me to go deep in the pain, right? And say, okay, cool. And regardless if it's, paying off debt or if it's to do home improvement, I always adapt to that. And I say, okay, perfect, because it's not really meant for debt consolidation. This is meant for equity enhancement, right? So it's tailored to them. And then what ends up happening is I'll task them. So once I get all the juice, I get them salivating, then I task them with 3 steps to do. So I have an email template, has my V card on it. I tell them to save it to their cell phone, so that way if I call, my picture pops up. But I task them and have them do, the online application. That's step 1. Step 2 is they upload the documents. And then step 3, I have them pay for their own credit report. And I do that on purpose because I need to know that their foot is in the game, or I got it right. Where a lot of brokers, they'll pay for the soft pull, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, like if I paid for the soft pull, even though I have your file, I don't have enough from you to even spend that much time. So I'm very selective. And so like a lot of, some of the top producers, they'll do everything from run DU on the first call, do a soft pull. And I respect that. That's cool. I just operate a little bit differently because I want them to show me something, because at the end of the day, I don't want to chase them. And so when I get their full file and I get their credit report, oftentimes what do we find out? They don't qualify for a HELOC, but I still present that option. And the reason why is because I present, of course, 2 options where a lot of my competitors are only going to say, hey, you don't qualify for a HELOC, but you got, a refinance. That's the wrong way to go about it, because that's what they hear. So like, oh, well, I don't want that, right? Instead, I'll be like, okay, so this is what a home equity line of credit looks like. This is how it may actually work against you. But, I actually see something that, in my personal opinion, this would handle so much more than just equity line, because I noticed that your FICO, your credit is this, and you could do everything in one shot and not be on the compounding interest. And in my professional opinion, I definitely would at least consider this. So which of these 2 do you feel is right? Like, which one are you most interested in? And then they'll choose one, right? Oh, you know what? That refinance interest rate's too high. I want the HELOC. Perfect. Okay, go ahead and fill, go ahead and send me over these items, and maybe I'll collect the rest of the documents. I'll have the disclosures out, right? So I'm going under the premise of them agreeing with them, so that they still want to do the 3 steps. They still want to, pay for their credit report. Because if I get them engaged and then I come back and say, hey, I spoke with the investor, they're looking at the other option that I recommended as the best possible way. And then in 3 months after this, I can open up an equity line of credit. And then third quarter of next year, when the rates drop, I can combine them both. But the difference is that your FICO is going to be this, your monthly savings is going to be this. I can defer your payments 2 times, right? I can get you an escrow balance refund, and you'll still have your equity line, but don't ignore the big picture here. You know what I mean? And then oftentimes, then it was like, okay, cool, let's do that way, because that allowed me to even get that far. Whereas a lot, when most brokers, or even salespeople in general, when they deal with the internet, they just take orders, and they're quick to tell them all the nuances, but they don't know that they're actually pushing them away. So it makes it harder for them to keep following you and taking your instruction, because I want them to feel that they could get it with me, because I still need to condition them to ignore all the other calls, right? Be prepared for all the trigger calls. So I send them like, this is how you get on the do not call list, save my V card to your contact, so it's me calling. And do me a favor, because this campaign is almost expiring, let's look at my numbers first before you pull your credit again, because I don't want it to change anything, right? So they're already kind of conditioned in that way to start ignoring everybody and looking at my costs, because we could say that as a broker, we're giving you wholesale access. So you're basically buying Hanes underwear from Hanes. You're not buying Hanes underwear from Bloomingdale, right? It's the same product. It's just one's going to have a massive markup. So if you know, my numbers don't make sense, all the other numbers are definitely not going to make sense because they're much higher. So then they look at it as like, okay, well, cool, I found the right person. They could help me. Does that make sense? Now they're going
Yeah.
along. And then of course, at the end of the day, once I got a little bit more juice and I understand the file, they mentally already kind of plan spending the money, right? Because they believe that they're getting the equity line. So like, perfect. Hey, babe, we're going to get an equity line of credit. We're going to do the, you know, pool. I'm going to pay off these credit cards. They're already mentally going through it. And then when you hit them back and be like, hey, so here's what we're going to do, right? Now you have enough leverage because you have the full file, right? And then, and
Right.
even if they do give kickback and say, you know, no, I still just want to do the equity line of credit. Well, you know what? I, as a professional, my license is on this, and I'm not going to do that to you. You know, I have a massive amount of reviews. I wouldn't recommend this to my worst enemy. You know, if you want to find a HELOC, you want to do that, go ahead and do it, right? I'll refer you somewhere else, and I know they can't get it because their FICO doesn't even hit, right? But at least I have a follow up. So they know that I can still give them the cash, and then I hit them on the sequence of like, hey, so did you ever open that equity line of credit yet? No, I never got it. Okay, great. Hey, check this out. Some updates have changed or happened since we last talked. Now I have meat to call them back. So it's never, hey, I'm just checking in, because I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? You definitely don't want to be that guy like, hey, just checking in, or I wanted to, you know, follow up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think it's something we can work in as far as having a template that has like the 3 options. You know, I think we're gonna ease into stepping into some more refi just to pull in. It's just I want to say not easier, but it's a quicker play to make some funds. You know,
Because all you're doing is just adding it to your database. You know what I mean? And then that just becomes that pool of leads that you want to collect, because if people are inquiring like right now and they know the rates are bad, they need cash. You know what I mean? And I'm a firm believer that you always constantly want that business to complement the purchase, because it is a tough market, dude. You know, and of course we have referral partners that we want to take care of, so we want to be able to, you know, take care of them. But at the same time, you know, what happens? You get them pre-approved, and then you have to follow up for fucking months and months and months, you know. But all that work's already been invested, and you're paying for that, you know. So you're getting the hopes high, and you're getting kind of that fatigue of like, fuck, no one's buying right now, everyone's falling out of escrow. But you want to be able to kind of keep the mindset strong of your team as well as ourselves, to know that that revenue's coming in, because you're not as desperate when you're engaging with another purchase, right? And I think that that's fundamental, because you got to get to a point where when you do talk to them, it's not a sales cadence. You know, it's more or less like, hey, I'm gonna be straight up with you. All these other people are gonna fluff you. I don't work that way, right? Like, if I can do it, I'm gonna show you how to do it. And I'm gonna show you how to get at the best price. But if you're looking for a 4-leaf clover, I'm gonna end this call right now, and because I'm not gonna waste your time, I'm not gonna waste mine. But you will get a lot of calls, right? So it's good that at least right now you're gonna know if you should even take those calls. Now I can dive in, because who doesn't respect that, right? Like you talk to me straight up, and I'm like, hey, how, you know, it's not sales, dude.
No.
You know what I mean? So that's how you make noise in a different way, especially with these people who are getting blown up.
Yeah, you end up sounding very thirsty, and maybe that comes with time and just life experience. But you're just like, hey, you know, I'm gonna shoot it to you straight. Most of my clients appreciate that, and this is what I see, and it's more so consultative than hard closing. And you and I probably come from the same space. I hard closed my entire career, and I find myself being a little bit more relaxed now. Like, I don't need to hard close someone. Like you said, I really want them to come back and say, hey, I'm just gonna do it with you. And it has a lot to do with being candid, and just almost having like, hey, take it if you want it. It makes sense. If you don't want it, let me know, and we can figure something out. Almost like, you know, I'm indifferent at this point. Like, hey, you're the one asking for it. We figured out a solution, and this is the next steps. Would you like to take those steps with me? I'll show you how to do it. Or no harm, no foul.
See, I think that, you know, for example, you know, the wordplay is super important, because we often do leave voice messages, and more often than they're reading it. They're not necessarily listening to it. So you got to be empathetic in that regard. So if they see a text like, you know, hey, this is Daniel Nekar from West Capital Lending, I'm going to call you right now, right? That immediately, like, fuck, man, I don't want that. And you want to avoid that. Does that make sense? So like all my cadence, all my scripting is it's almost like we talked. I want to give them impression, right? So like my voicemail says, hey Ram, it's Daniel getting back to you. Sorry I missed your call. That's what they read right away. Now I got the hook for them to read more, right? Hey, sorry I missed your call. I did send you all the quotes. My email subject line says your requested equity quotes. I need you to confirm that the numbers are correct though. So that way I could give you time and you come to me when you're ready. That's it. So now they are tasked to reply to the email or reply to the text and say, yeah, numbers are correct. Yeah, I found it, right? And now it opens up the dialogue. Okay, which of the three are you most curious about? Right? Oh, I'm curious about HELOC. And then I know their county, right? I'm like, you know, are you in Orange County? I am. Oh, okay, cool. Can I ask you what the cash is for? It's gonna be for home improvement. Perfect. I'm gonna call you right now. There's a campaign specific for that, right? That'll get you a massive discount. So now they want to know. Make sense? And then of course, whether they qualify or not, we're using the HELOC because that's what they want. And I think a lot of brokers or LOs in general make the mistake of trying to say, okay, well, HELOC's pretty strict. You know, you need a 680 FICO. You know, they're given too much information. They're making it hard, and then they get upset, and then they think that they can't qualify anywhere. So if I hit them right off the bat and be like, hey, if you're working with like, you know, Loan Depot or Rocket, I could significantly beat them on their interest rate and fees. Here, I'll show you. Did you find my email? Right now, they're interested. Because call it for what it is, they're the ones who are first contacting them, you know, because they got that power, right? So like we're probably the third, fourth, fifth call that they're getting. I already know it's the big companies that talk to them first, so I'm gonna leverage that.
For sure.
You see what
I'm
saying?
Then even on our side of things, the psychological barrier a loan officer could put on a HELOC is that it doesn't make enough revenue. But I'm like, hey, you were right. Every deal is in your database. So it's like, you got to look beyond your screen. You got to look long-term. Every single one that you pull in and fund, that's your business 6 months from now, 12 months from now. And I think that's a piece of it too, where they're like, oh, I'm only going to make $2,000 on this. I'm like, who cares?
You see what I'm saying? Like if that $2,000 basically paid for that week's marketing budget though, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, you hit it on the nose because at the end of the day, if you give it a good college try and you can't book them on a refi, I don't mind writing a HELOC because now we did business together and I now know I have a retread to combine the two. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
So that's future business. And I don't mind doing that because that traction gives me momentum. And then of course, with the 5-day HELOC that you're talking about from Figure, it's fucking so easy, dude. You know what I mean? Like you just plug it in and literally just let it go. And there's no appraisal, nothing like so. I don't really lose out on that, but I never default to that. You know, I think a lot of LOs default to it because they don't want to bother. And the reason why they don't want to bother is because they're doing too much on the front end. Like they're running DU, they're paying for the credit report. That's why they then default, okay, I don't want to fuck with you. This guy's an asshole. You send it off the Figure. You know, but what we're trying to do first and foremost is get that information so you can present or find a way to turn that into a refinance. Right? And you're doing it methodically because you're planting seeds along the way with regards to improve their FICO. You're dropping seeds about the market rate dropping third quarter next year. And then when you start, when you then go pitch later on, you say, hey, if you remember, I said the rates are going to improve, right? You remember me saying that? They're going to say, yeah. Say, okay, exactly. So this is why this one's a better option. And it makes it a little bit more powerful because when they're educated with regards to how these things work, that sets you apart from everyone else, and that they then find, you know, you earn that trust, right? But again, it's under the premise of not thinking like, man, you don't qualify for HELOC, I'm wasting my time. You got to go with it, bro. You got to keep engaging, right? Because when they send you their docs, they pay for their credit report, and you have all that ammunition, you're better off in that position as opposed to showing your cards and now I'm chasing you.
Interesting. Yeah, man, I'll definitely kind of put it in play. I appreciate your time today. Anything I can do to help, man, let me know.
Now it's your time to hit the thumbs up if this video helped you. I love engaging with you in the comment section below. Lastly, please share this video with someone else that can benefit from this topic. Thanks for subscribing. Look out for the notification for my next video and I'll see you there.